In this video, I'd like to talk to you about what I think is the number one thing that contributes to healthy, sustainable relationships, whether it's in your family, between generations, for example, because that's where a lot of misunderstandings are occurring, or with your partner, with your children, with your spouse. I'm going to talk about what I discovered is maybe the number one thing, or at least from my perspective, that helps the relationships feel connected. We are living in the world of thoughts, in a world of critical thinking, logical thinking, and the world of emotions. Sometimes it's put on a back burner. What it often causes is that we create a lot of stories in our mind that are disconnected from how we actually feel. And if there's two people, which they are in relationships, if not more, we start creating a lot of assumptions about what they are thinking and what their stories are. In a relationship where there's two people, there's not just two people, but there's actually six. The way I think I am, the way he or she thinks they are, the way I think they are, the way she thinks that I am, the way I think that she thinks that I am, and the way that she thinks that I think that she is. Rewind this video if you need to really kind of understand. Maybe I'll put some graphic over the top. But basically, there is a lot of assumptions, there is a lot of misconceptions. Language itself is really an efficient way of communicating. And so rather than getting lost in the language side of things, we need to start looking for ways that we can tune into each other's resonance, each other's emotional felt sense, first person perspective, or rather second person. That's what's happening between the two people that are communicating in the relationship. What's the emotion behind it? And if you do that, if you start focusing on we could call it a vibe, we could call it a feeling, we could call it the atmosphere in the room, you notice that it shifts throughout conversations. And if you start picking up on that, and some people are more sensitive with picking up on the atmosphere in the room, some people are more rational. And that's also a really useful thing to know, who is what type of personality or way of thinking, because that in and of itself creates a lot of miscommunications. But if you start tuning into the atmosphere and then correlating the thoughts and the framings and the assumptions we create in our logical mind, explain a lot of miscommunications and misunderstandings. Really important thing in relationships is communicating, right? So, and communication is nothing else but exchange of information. And what is the information about? It's about each other's perspective. So I experience the world from a certain point of view. My spouse or my friend experiences it from a different point of view. And I'm talking to him or her using words referring to how I feel, and he and she understands it based on how they felt or how they understand the world, how they interpreted it, what their experiences are. And so the language is up here, whereas the emotion, the felt sense, is below that, in a sense. It kind of comes first because the language only describes the felt sense. So rather than stopping on that upper level, we need to get into that emotional space with the person we're communicating. And that sometimes means that maybe you want to point out the way that the energy in the room shifted, or the way you felt when he or she said a certain thing. So in therapy sessions, a lot of the times where there's like a couples therapy, they would tell you, don't speak about what you think is true, but talk about what you feel, because that can't be disputed. The way you feel, it's just yours, it's internal, and it doesn't create more argument, because you're not claiming that the way I think the world is the only truth, but I'm referring to my first perspective point of view. So that's just a tangent, but back to our overarching topic. If we are able to communicate on that emotional level, we can start doing this one thing that if you use it in your relationships, it will change everything. You can start searching for the signal. So what I mean here, person you're communicating with is trying to tell you something in their experience. So that's the signal. And then there's the limitations of language, the way their assumptions are misaligned with yours. And that's the noise. Maybe they misinterpreted some things in the world, or maybe they don't understand how you view it as opposed to their own understanding of a certain topic or area. And so that's the noise. And the goal of good communication is to parse the signal from the noise. So listen to what they are trying to tell me rather than looking for logical fallacies in how they speak. That's what we often do. We get stuck on this upper level of, I think the thing you just said didn't make sense because logically you're contradicting yourself. But that wasn't the point. The person, if they are speaking in a good faith dialogue, are trying to communicate something. And maybe it's not what they think they're communicating. And that brings me back to the emotional regulation. We need to kind of feel into that room. So sometimes you can say something like, I felt a little bit attacked when you said this particular thing. And then if the other person is on the same boat and is trying to do this same thing of tuning into each other and communicating on that deeper level, they can say, oh, I felt a little bit stressed when you said that I'm attacking you. Okay, let's discuss that. And the really interesting thing here is that if you can trust whatever is arising in your mind and say it with no judgment, that's the key for the other one to be able to pick up on that and expand. So you're kind of solving the problem together. This is a really tricky one because sometimes there is a really strong signal of, for example, defensiveness, where I feel like I'm being attacked and I want to really protect myself. So this process requires certain wisdom where you slow down and tuning into your emotions again, not just into the other ones, because that's the thing. Distinguishing which emotions are mine and which emotions I'm feeling in the room is sometimes hard because the communication, the interaction happens between you and the person you're trying to hang out with. So that's really interesting. The word I like to use here is discernment. You're not trying to look for objective evidence, what's the truth. You're trying to discern, am I speaking from fear or am I speaking from love towards the other person? And you might get frustrated with this video because I promised you I'm going to give you one simple answer, but the reality is that I can't solve all your emotional problems for you because they are your emotional problems or your emotional states that you're going through. But number one thing in relationships, if you want to be deep in relationships, talk about those, bring them up, share them. Open up slowly, bit by bit, because in relationships we are building rapport, we are building trust, and that takes time and that takes, some cautiousness, previous experiences and evidence, but also our side opening up and inviting the other person to merge deeper with our identity. So it's an interesting dance. I've been lucky that me and my wife are able to do it, and I'm recording this video right after we had a probably hour and a half long conversations about our emotions, where we thought it's about this cleaning issue in our house or whatnot, and then we went through our own insecurities and how we probably learned these habits and patterns from our parents and grandparents in our childhoods, and we ended up not solving so much on a practical level, but we all feel like great, much better after we did that. So that's an interesting thing. Also, that's a one tip for people who are very rational. In those conversations where you're trying to tune into emotions, don't look for solutions. Look for the atmospheric shift, so to speak. Look for the shift in how you feel and how you're connecting. So perhaps next time when you see a friend, next time you speak to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, or your son or daughter, try and slow down a little bit and listen to what they are actually trying to tell you and feel into what the atmosphere behind it is, and notice your thoughts around it. So notice if you panic because you're scared that they are not well. And you can say that because that builds the trust again, because they will see, oh, my mom or dad are experiencing the same emotions that I do when I'm amongst my peers in school, and I'm stressed about fitting in. All these things can be really extremely powerful. So I invite you to give it a try, slowing down and discern where the signal is. If you'd like help with this, I coach people around emotional regulation, about feeling stuck and disconnected in their lives. So you can check out the link in the descriptions where I offer free clarity sessions where we can talk about your problems and see if I can help you with them. And other than that, I will hope this video was helpful for you, and please subscribe to my new wellness coaching channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.